In this lesson, I'll cover how to really customize your website so that it looks great, is easy to navigate, and will get you the results you want. Let's dig in. Now that we've logged in, this is the WordPress dashboard, and we haven't really done anything to this website yet. So first, I'm going to just show you what it's like to operate as the admin of your WordPress site. So here on the dashboard, like I showed in one of the previous lessons, here you have some quick links and some information, and at a glance you can see your activity and your stats on your website. Now, because this is a brand new website, we have this at the top, which is giving us a couple of examples of places to start. Add an about page, set up your home page, and a couple of other things. And these are some of the elements I'm going to go through today. So first, when you want to view your website as a user, you can just go ahead here and click on Visit Site. This takes you to what I'm going to call the front end of your site. And to get back to the back end, you can just click on Dashboard. Now, people who are visiting your site will not see this bar. Only you will see it when you're logged into your site, or any other user who you invite as a user to your website. So to go back to our dashboard, here we can click, and I am going to start with modifying the appearance of the website by launching the customizer. This is a shortcut here where you can really change several of the settings. And I want to mention that some of these are very specific to the theme that you've installed. So here we have content options, which are specific to this theme. And depending on the theme that you have installed, you may have even more options here that appear. So this demo really is for this theme, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to get a sense of how things work in WordPress so that when you open up your own website with your own theme, some of this will be applicable and you won't be too surprised. So let's start with site identity. Right, so when I set up this website, I did give my site a name, but this is where you can change it if you wanted to call it something like Bar School or something like that. You can just go ahead and change it there, but I'm going to leave it as Clark Street Yoga for my example. This tagline, however, definitely needs to be updated. You can eliminate it altogether if you don't need a tagline, or you can do something like New York's favorite bar and yoga school, or you could just call it yoga and bar, something like that. You can play around with this. And the other thing you can do is to completely hide it. So if you don't want your site title and tagline to appear here, you can hide it, although it will still appear in the browser. If you type in a URL, you know how at the top of a browser, you'll see the description for the website. That will still show up. And same thing for Google searches. So you do want to make sure this has something in here and that it is reflective of the content of your website. So up here we have a logo. This is a great opportunity to upload a logo. If you don't have one, obviously this can serve as your logo and that's no problem at all. But if you want to brand your website a little bit, I do recommend having a logo that you can use. Here I have a logo, and this is just something I whipped up. You can use a service like Canva to create your own logo, or if you have a designer friend, they can help you. And here I'm going to put an alt tag, Clark Street Yoga, because I want it to be descriptive. Alt tags, and I'll get into detail about this in the SEO course, but alt tags are a way for screen readers, so people who have visual impairments, to be able to see what this image is. So a screen reader will read out the description. So you want it to be descriptive, and it's also helpful if it has some keywords that will reflect the content of your website so that when people search, Google Images will pick up on the alt tag and show them the image. So this theme is asking me if I want to crop it. I want to show it the way that it is. And so here now it's popping up there. And the theme will resize it and also resize it depending on the device. So I'm going to leave it the way that it is because I think the theme is doing a pretty good job of handling it. If you wanted to make any modifications to the way that your theme handles your logo, you can do that with CSS, but that is a little bit more advanced. So the logo is there, and because I have this logo, I don't feel the need to show this. So I'm going to go ahead and hide it. The other thing that I have here in the site identity is the site icon. Now the site icon is the little image that pops up in the browser. It's not necessary to have one, but it does add that little touch of branding. And since we have a logo we can use already, it's a nice little step to add. So now we have a more branded website. I'm going to go ahead and publish this, which is kind of like saving it because, yeah, I want this to be applied to my site right away. The next thing here is menus. Now we don't have a ton of content to work with yet, so I'm going to come back to menus a little bit later, but this is a quick way to create a new menu and to manage the locations. And again, this is also theme specific, so some themes will have multiple menu spaces. They'll have a menu in the footer that you can manage, and something like social menu, which will allow you to link your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that. So I will come back to that later when we have a couple more pages to work with. Widgets, here it looks like this theme only has a widget area in the footer. Now this is theme specific, which you'll hear me say a lot, but some themes, especially blogging themes, will have widget areas on the sidebar. Sometimes it's the left or the right. Sometimes you have the option to pick either one, and widgets will show you little sections in these sidebars, or in our case, it's in the footer, that can link back to other parts of the website and content. So here I have recent posts, recent comments, archives, categories, and meta. If I click here, it'll show me exactly where this widget is and show me some tools that I can use to customize it. So I don't really love having these in the footer. I don't have a blog set up yet, so this is irrelevant to me. So I'm going to go ahead and actually remove most of these. I'll keep recent posts, comments. I don't like that. Archive, not useful. Categories, don't have enough blog posts for that right now. And meta, I want to hide from my visitors. So I'm going to leave these two widgets in the footer and maybe make some customizations later on. All right, homepage settings. Now this gets interesting. There's really two ways to set up a WordPress website. Either you have your blog post populate on your homepage, which I recommend for blogs, or you have a static page which acts as your homepage, which you can customize and set up the way that you want. You can still display your latest posts on your static homepage, so it really isn't one or the other, because static page really does give you a lot of flexibility in building up the page that you want. So I'm going to choose a static page. However, I don't actually have any pages built on my site yet, so I'm going to go ahead and add one and call it Home. By identifying my home page as the static page, the next question is, what is going to be my post page? Now this is a page that will automatically be populated by your latest blog posts. So I am going to once again create a new page and call it blog. Now I know not all websites need to have a blog, and this isn't the blog course, so really setting up a blog here it's totally optional. I'm going to add it as a step so you can know how to do it if you do want to add a new section or a blog section to your website. These settings down here allow me to control a little bit more of the look of the page, so I can hide the site footer menu and widgets. I'm going to keep them because I think they might be useful. And you can also hide the site header, which in my case, I don't want to do. I am perfectly happy having that at the top. So let's take a look at what our website looks like. Right, so we have this home page. We don't have anything on it. We still have our widgets in the footer, and we have this little tagline at the bottom. This logo has become clickable, so it'll always take you back to your home page. I want to add more things to this page because this is really the first impression that people get. So I want to make sure our homepage looks super awesome. So when I clicked on edit, this is one way of getting to the backend editor of your page, but there's other ways as well. So if you want to look at any of your pages, you can click on pages here and you can quickly add one. You can see the ones that are in draft mode and you can see the ones that are published. Once you have lots and lots of pages, there's a couple of other options that will be helpful in editing or mass editing your pages. But for now, we've got just a couple here. I don't need this sample page anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and trash it. And I believe you have 30 days to restore a page that you have in your trash. In drafts, I have a privacy policy that is auto-generated by WordPress. And this is important because of, policies in European Union and in North America around the use of people's information as they browse a website. So if someone leaves a comment and it has their email address associated with it, or if they fill out a form on your website to get in touch, all of that is considered sort of private information, people's email addresses and that kind of things. So you need to have a privacy policy on your website where people can refer to how you're using their data. So this is kind of a generic one that is auto-generated, and I do recommend publishing it and making it available so people can access it. All right. Back to my pages. Here we have blog, which is where our blog posts are showing up, our homepage, and the privacy policy, obviously. You can make quick edits to any page just by clicking on Quick Edit. You can change the URL slug of your page. You can also password protect it, make it private, allow comments. You can change it into a pending review or draft mode, and you can nest it under another page if you have a more complex page structure. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and edit it in the normal editing screen. And here we can start adding content to our page. Before I move on, there are a couple of other things you can do up here. Things like changing the visibility. We looked at private and password protected earlier. You can change the publish date if for some reason that's relevant. You can add a featured image and you can allow comments. And again, you can nest pages under a more complex structure if you need to. Now over here we have block, and this is a settings panel that shows up really as you're adding blocks of content to your page structure. So I'll go ahead and show you an example. So here I've just added a paragraph block, and so here I have a couple of different settings. I want this to be a little bit more prominent, so I'm going to go ahead and change it from a paragraph to a heading. And these are our headings. H stands for heading. And the reason why we have these is because in your content structure, you're going to want to have different types of headings. H1 should be reserved for the title of the page only. So our home here is an H1. Your next level should be H2. So, prominent text, things that are the headers of a very important paragraph. And then below that, if you wanted to have an even more granular structure, you can use some of these other ones. Now, this isn't just for design purposes and display. Google, as they parse through your website, will pick up on these headers, and the information that they'll find in there will help the Google bots understand what the page is about. So one thing I highly recommend is that your header, whatever you do have using a heading 1, 2, or 3, has very useful and descriptive information in it so that when Google reads your website, they get a really clear sense of what each page is about. This is our home page, so the rules are a little bit different than, say, a page or a blog post, but I'm going to use this H2 because this is sort of the mission statement of the studio, and I want it to appear very prominently at the top of the page. Here I can change some of the settings if I want them to be, centered. Actually, that looks kind of cute, so I'll leave it like that. Because I don't want this on here, I am going to remove it and let this really do the talking. All right, let's add some imagery because I do want this to be a beautiful website. So I can choose an image here. As you saw, there's a couple of other options like gallery, cover, media, text, a downloadable image, and I can also group multiple different blocks together. In fact, if you look at all of the available blocks, there really are quite a few, And the more plugins you add, more about plugins in the next lesson, the more blocks you'll see pop up here. So, these are really fun to explore and to try, and you get a little bit of a preview here on what those look like. But for now, I'm going to add an image, and I'm going to pull from some of these that I have here. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and use one of these. All right, now this is an image block, so I have a whole bunch of new options here in the block editor. I can add another alt tag here, and I can customize the size, make it smaller, bigger, align it differently. I can also add a mask that makes it round, and I can control sort of how that looks here. I can crop the image if I want to apply a special type of crop, and I can choose the orientation and things like that. I'm going to cancel so I don't do that. And what you can also do is set the alignment. Now I want to see what this looks like full width. This is still a little big for me, so I am going to limit it back to this and move on. All right, so here I want to add something that calls out to maybe some of the different elements or pages that you have on your website. So I'm going to try something here with the image and the media and text here. So I'm going to upload a new image, and I'm going to add a little blurb. So you can add anything here really, and if you wanted to get more fancy with your displays, you could add a button. And you can add a hyperlink to whatever page you have on your site. So we don't have any pages really yet, but soon we will. So we would be able to type in the URL of whatever page that you want to link to. So we don't have one, so that doesn't exist, but soon enough we will. So this is one example of something you could add. I'm going to add something else to show you what's possible. Let's try a cover image. Now a cover image allows you to upload a photo. I'm going to go ahead and use this one, and then write something over it. For this situation, I am actually going to set it to full width because I have a bit more control over how that shows up. You can set it to a fixed background, and that looks like this, or a repeat background if your image is too small. You can change the focal point so you can, have more people's heads in the photo and less of their butts. And you can also set more customization here as to how wide you want this area. So I really like this block. I think it's a really useful one. All right, so this button, I am actually going to change some of the settings here. You can make it look like this. You can fill it with the color. You can have the border be more round or more square, and you can have it open in a new tab. And then color settings, of course. So for this one, I actually do want it to be a little bit more neutral. And you could do something like this. Now, because this website is for a yoga studio, we may want to try something like displaying class prices. So for this, I'm going to show you different column features that you can really customize to however you want. So for this, I'm going to go with 3. So this just allows me to put more blocks within a column structure, and it's a little bit more organized and contained. Right, so now we have this little section here, and so I want to give this a little bit of a custom color here that just helps it pop a little bit. So we can go ahead and save this. All right, so we've worked on our homepage a little bit. There's still more we can do, but until we have a little bit more content, you know, we'll be missing a couple pieces of the puzzle. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another page, and we're gonna call this About Us. All right, so now we have a little bit more to work with here. Same thing for a blog. So we don't really have any posts here. So I'm gonna add a blog post here as a pretend, add another one. So now that we have more content, I am going to go back to our home page and I'm going to make a couple of tweaks to it. It's kind of bothering me that this page doesn't have a title, so I'm going to add one. All right, so here, for example, I can add. And now here I can actually pull in my blog posts from the blog. And here you can customize this. You know, I could make it look more like this and have the author displayed or the date, which is helpful. If I had content in the blog post, which I don't, you know, you could show the excerpt as well or the full post. And if we had featured images on these, we could also showcase that. We could also only show certain categories and tags, certain authors only, and you can change how, you know, the order of how it's displayed. You can also limit it. So if you wanted only the latest blog post to show, or if you wanted to kind of tidy up the features, you could make it only 2 columns or multiple columns. The other thing that I said I was gonna come back to are the menus. So here we have our pages, and we first need to create a menu. I'm gonna go ahead and click on Manage with Live Preview, which takes us back to that customizer that I showed you at the beginning. I just find this is an easier way to really view the changes that you're making and how they affect your site. So here's kind of where we're at with our home page. And we still have our widgets down here, which right now I'm not a big fan of. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and remove those. Now we're back to our menu here, and we haven't created a menu yet. So I'm gonna start with one and call it Main Menu. And I'm gonna put it both in the primary location and the footer menu, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Now I don't have any menu items, so it's empty, but I'm gonna go ahead and add a link to our studio, About Us, classes, all of the pages, plus the blog post. So now, as you can see, they're all there. So I'm going to put a little bit of order in there. I feel like About Us should be at the top. Contact Us could be at the bottom. Blog is in a good place. Classes works, but I'm going to nest these so that they have a little bit of a drop-down menu. And I feel like this is a good amount and, you know, fits nicely in this theme. Now you'll see at the bottom, this is also populated down here. You can create a whole other menu if you wanted to customize the footer menu. So I'm gonna override the main menu here and create my own custom footer menu that's really only gonna have my privacy policy, my contact us, and about us. Let's leave it at that. So now the footer has its own custom menu. The social links menu I will call social menu, and I'm going to put that in the social links. And this is where you can add custom links. So I'll go facebook.com. And I'll call it Facebook, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll add Instagram, and so you can put your custom profile there. And what this theme will do is it'll pull in the Instagram icons, the Facebook icons, so you'll have these pop up in the bottom and match the website that you're linking to automatically. So if I have twitter.com as well, then that will go ahead and populate here. I will save my settings. Now, a couple things about the blog. So because I'm populating the blog posts here on this page, this will automatically have all of my new content. If I had featured images, those would show up here as well. So I highly recommend that you choose one size of image for your blog posts and be consistent from blog post to blog post so that when they all populate here, they all have the same look. On the topic of blog posts, let's go back to where we have them all. So here you have categories and tags. Each blog post can be in multiple categories and each blog post can have multiple tags. The way that I differentiate them is that you would have only a handful of categories. So for example, studio news or wellness, or studio hours. You may have a couple of other ones as well. And so really, typically, each blog post would really only fit under one category if you've done a good job. Tags can be a little bit more liberal. So if you have different styles of yoga that you want to talk about, you could use the different tags on that, as well as, if it's about the studio hours or if it's about a particular teacher. Tags just allow you to organize your content and generate custom archive pages as well. I'll show you a quick example of what I mean by that. So if I take a look at my posts here, they all do not have a tag, but if I were to add a tag to all of them, yoga and studio and wellness and maybe some of the other tags that I'm using, then I can update it. So if I go back to my website and I go to my blog and I click on one of these tags, it'll bring me to a page that shows me all the blog posts that share that tag. And this is fun if you start having hundreds of posts. It's a quick way to create custom pages where you really only show blog posts that have one theme. So I highly recommend organizing your content in categories and with tags, because in the future it'll give you a bit more flexibility with organizing and displaying your content. In the next few lessons, I will be adding some plugins that will expand some of these functionalities and give you even more features. So I'm excited to walk you through that. And in lesson 9, we will talk about e-commerce, how to add things like payments so you can start selling passes and maybe add some payment processors to areas like this on your website.